Okay. So only in Lamed Vav Min Aleph, the Gemara says ha'avadim, and this is going on the Mishnah. And avadim was one of the situations that were listed as Isa Peris Tadim. We go back to the Mishnah on Chavtes. The Mishnah says on Chavches, I'm sorry. The Mishnah says that when it comes to batim and sados, all different types of things, there are some things which are used regularly but not daily, and other things which are used daily. So if it's Isa Peris Tadir, which means it's used daily, so then the chazaka is for 3 years. You have to establish a chazaka for 3 years, miyom liyom, daily. But if it's something which is Isa Peris, but it's not Isa Peris Tadir, it's Eina Isa Peris Tadir, so then it's 3 years, but it's Eina miyom liyom. It doesn't have to be daily. So in the listing, it talked about houses that people live in, talks about certain types of fields, it talks about a Beis Habad. All these different things are things which are used regularly. So there is Seperes Tadir. At the end of the list is Avadim. Slaves are also ones that are Seperes Tadir because they're used on a constant basis. An Eved, even though it's a human being, the Gemara says is Hukash L'Karka, has a similar din to Karka for a number of things. One of them being that the way that a person purchases an Eved, we're talking about an Eved Kanani, not an Eved Ivri. An Eved Kanani, the way a person purchases an Eved Kanani, one of the ways is with shtar, kesef shtar chazaka, just like karka. So since shtar is a viable way to purchase an Eved, to acquire an Eved, now we're back into the same issue as karka, which is that after 3 years, you're going to lose your shtar, and how are you going to prove that this is your karka? Avadim also. I don't walk around with my Eved in my pocket. So how do I know that this Eved belongs to you? The fact that he happens to be on my property doesn't mean he belongs to me. So after 3 years, we say that once you've established using the Eved for 3 years, Tadir, Yom Yom, so now you don't have to have your shtar anymore that says he's your Eved, and now you have Chazaka. That's the din in the Mishnah.
Can the Eved be regarded as a human being and express his opinion that he's been an Eved constantly or
It's an interesting
intermittently?
question. We wouldn't be able to have that by a karka. So you're asking, is his own statement a valid statement? And I guess the answer would be no, because if we take his word for it, if he happens to not like his master, then he's gonna, put an ad in the paper. Who wants to get a free Eved? Come and claim that you're mine, that I'm yours, and then I'll go along with the story, and I'll be able to, take a hike and leave my master, and you'll get a free Eved. So that would not be an Eved. Anyways, is Pasal Edus. Eved cannot be Pasal Edus. So that would not be sufficient for Edus or Chazak. So the Gemara says, Avadim Yeshlam Chazaka. It's asking a question. Ha'amar Reish Lakish Hagoydros Ein Lahem Chazaka. So the Gemara asks that Reish Lakish tells us that Godros do not have a Chazaka. Now, what does it mean, Godros? Take a look at the Rashbam. The Rashbam is 6 lines down in the wide lines, the widest lines, six lines down. Hagodros ein lahem chazaka. Godros tzon, sheep. V'chol davar ha'mahalach v'drachim v'shvakim. Any animals that walk around, sheyachal loymar, that a person would be able to say, me'atzmo nichnas o ato ichnasta lebeischa ve'echzakta bo. You could say that animal, the same way somebody's cat wanders into your yard, so this sheep or this cow wandered into my yard, and that's why it's here, not because I actually bought it. Or you saw a sheep wandering in the Rishus Harabim, and you saw, oh, wouldn't it be nice to have a sheep? And you grab it and you bring it home. I didn't do a gzela. I didn't go into somebody else's Rishus. Well, you did do a gzela because it doesn't belong to you. And now you're claiming it belongs to you, and somebody else is saying it belongs to him. So Rish Lakish says that even though when it comes to what's called metaltalin, things which are portable, movable, we normally say chazaka kol ma shetachas yad adam shalohu. So the jacket that you're wearing, we assume belongs to you simply because it's by you. When it comes to godros, when it comes to animals, sheep, etc., dog, a cat, so then the fact that it's by you, the fact that it's in your house, is in and of itself not an assumption of ownership. So in other words, I have a lot of things in my house. if somebody claims your dining room table is mine, all I have to say is, it's in my house. If a dog is in my house and somebody says, hey, that's my dog, I can't say, well, it's in my house, it's my dog. No, doesn't work. Because it's possible the dog wandered into your house. It's possible the dog was looking for its master, couldn't find it, and you chopped it and brought it into your house. There's no raya from the fact that it's by you because it moves on its own. That's what the Rishbam continues to say. You can't, you're not neman to say, I bought it, simply by the fact that it's by you. Avadim can walk anywhere they want. And yet it says in the Mishnah that you have a chazak on avadim. So asks the Gemara, why are avadim any better than animals? The same way that animals walk around and there's no raya from where it is, so too by avadim there's no raya from where it is. The question of the Gemara is a very disturbing question, because we're comparing apples and oranges. What does the Mishnah say? The Mishnah says that if you have an Eved for 3 years and he works by you, after 3 years, you do not need to shtar him. Because if Adam say, this Eved has been working here for 3 years, but this guy, and you, who's coming now and saying, no, that's my Eved, but where have you been for the past 3 years? You haven't said anything. So we've already learned enough times that when somebody has been silent for 3 years and not said anything, he can't all of a sudden start protesting after 3 years. 3 years passed, you didn't say anything, it doesn't belong to you anymore. So now, that's what the Mishnah says. Does that have anything to do with Rish Lakish's issue of Godros? Absolutely not. Rish Lakish's issue of Godros is a halacha about Cheskes Metaltalin, which is immediately. As soon as I come over to you and I say, hey, that's my shirt, you say, it's by me, so it's mine. No time has to transpire. I don't say, I have had this shirt in my closet since high school. No, you don't have to say that. The fact that yesterday it was yours, and I bought it from you, and today it's mine. So here it is. I have it now. That's enough of a ride that I bought it from you. Even if Adam come and say that, no, I saw the guy who's coming out protesting. I saw him wearing a shirt yesterday. I say, go fly kite. It's very nice that Adam saw you wearing it. I bought it from him, and I'm wearing it today. It's mine. So when it comes to metaltalin, your chazak is miyad. All Rish Lakish says is the fact that you have an animal by you, even though it's metaltalin, is not a raya that it's yours. But if it's been there for 3 years and the owner hasn't said anything,
it should be.
Then of course that's a raya that it's yours. It has nothing to do with Rish Lakish. It didn't wander there. If it would have wandered there, where was the owner for the past 3 years? Right? Really? It wandered there? Where have you been? I still have the same kasha. For 3 years you haven't said anything. Therefore, the Gemara's question is very difficult. I can reconcile Godros Einam Chazaka and Avadim Yesham Chazaka. Because Avadim don't have a Chazaka right away, they don't have a Chazaka after 3 years. And Godros don't have a chazaka right away, but maybe Godros also have a chazaka after 3 years. I don't know. But what kind of kash is this? So there's 2 ways to address this question. The pashut way to address it, which is the way the Ritva and the Yad Ramah address this question, is it's a good point, but Rish Lakish made a blanket statement. He says, Godros ein lahem chazaka. It sounds like there is no concept of chazaka when it comes to animals that move. And therefore, the same way Rish Lakish made a blanket statement about animals, that statement should also be true about avadim. Even though, in logic, we have a reason why it should apply. Well, if it did apply, then wouldn't it apply by animals as well? So why is Rish Lakish saying that Godros don't have a chazaka? In other words, mimanav shach. If you tell me the concept of 3 years applies to moving things, then it should apply not only to avadim, but also to Godros. And Godros is not in the Mishnah. And if you're going to tell me that it doesn't apply because Godros einam chazaka, as Rish Lakish said, then why is avadim in the Mishnah? That's one way to understand. It's a very pashut way to ask the question. There's another way to ask the question, which is based on our understanding of chazaka. What happens after 3 years being on karka? After 3 years of being on karka, so now I don't need a shtar anymore. I just have edim that I've been here for 3 years. So we have 2 malachim to understand how that works. One malach, which is a more pashut svara, is it's a raya. It's a raya from the fact that I've been working on the land and you haven't said anything for 3 years that it doesn't belong to you. It's a raya, it's a form of raya. That goes along with the lashon that we've seen in numerous times. Chazaka b'makom shtar kai. Chazaka is in the place of the shtar. The same way a shtar is a raya that you bought it, so chazaka is also a raya that you bought it. Carrie, I'm not sure if you were here before. We're on Lamed Vav Amid Aleph. Okay. So when it comes to the concept of chazaka, one way of learning it is that it is a right. There's a second way to learn it, which is it's not a right. What's the issue when it comes to karka? The issue when it comes to karka is that karka is where it is, no matter what. People come and go. So the fact that I happen to be on this karka right now doesn't mean it belongs to me. I could have just wandered onto the karka. But after 3 years of being on the karka, then we say you become a muhsuk on the karka. It's not a raya that belongs to you, but it becomes a new concept of muhsakus. The same way I could be a muhsuk on my water bottle, so I could be a muhsuk on karka. But to be muhsuk on the water bottle happens right away. When it comes to karka, the Chachamim instituted a new muhsuk of muhsakus that after 3 years you become a muhsuk. So it's not a raya belongs to you, it's a muhsuk. I could say that you're a muhsuk being on karka because karka is stationary. It doesn't go anywhere. So me being on it for 3 years, now I become a muhsuk on the karka. But when it comes to godros, since the whole concept of muhsakus doesn't really apply to godros because they go around from one place to another, today they're here, tomorrow they're somewhere else. So since the whole idea of muhsakus doesn't apply by an animal, so maybe there also was no institution of getting a muhsakus after 3 years when it comes to animals, when it comes to things that move. The same way that godros ein lahem chazaka metaltalin, a chazaka of day one, then also the chachamim were not misakein an idea of muhsakus on godros after 3 years. And the same way they weren't misaking it by godros, they also weren't misaking it by avadim, because the nature of those things are things which move around. The fact that they move around means I'm not associated with them anymore. So therefore, that would be a way to understand the Gemara's question is, the whole concept of cheskes kemel shanim is built on the concept of muhsakus, and since there is no muhsakus by godros, therefore we can't have a muhsakus after 3 years. So that's the question of the Gemara. Amar Rava, we could have guessed kind of what the answer is. So it says Rava, you misunderstood what Rish Lakish was saying. Rish Lakish was just saying that you don't have a chazaka for 3 years, for within the 3 years meaning, but after 3 years, then you would have a chazaka. That would be the simple reading of the Gemara. And that's the way the Rashbam reads the Gemara. Take a look at the Rashbam. Mashani, Hadam Rish Lakish einam chazaka, hani mila alter, shemachzik behen bebeisa. If a person has animals in his house, ein yochal liton l'kuchu biyadi, below edim, below raya. He can't say, yeah, these are mine, unless he brings edim or some form of raya. Kishar metaltalin, she'ein yochal nahalech. When it comes to metalton that don't move, so that meaning don't move on their own, so then I can go ahead and be naman to say l'kuchu biyadi hovi yesh lebeiso once it's in my house. Why? Because since it's in my house, how did it get there? It didn't get there on its own. It doesn't walk. I bought a chair, so the chair is in my house now. So how did it get there? You accusing me of stealing a chair? We don't assume the person stole a chair. So if it came, must be because you bought it. So if it's because you bought it, so then now we know it's yours immediately. When it comes to godros, you don't have a chazak immediately. Aval yesh lahen la'avadim u'legodros chazak ala'ar gimel shanim shahayu lo lezem ar limchais v'lo imicha. But since after 3 years you could have protested during those 3 years and you didn't, therefore now you do have a chazaka after 3 years, both by avadim and by godros. So Rashbam says that we have a big chiddush now, because what we just did is we added a case to the Mishnah. The Mishnah says avadim have cheskes gimel shanim. The Mishnah says nothing about sheep, about goats, about cows. They don't have cheskes metaltalin. Do they have cheskes gimel shanim? Says the Gemara, yes. That's what Rava is saying. Rava is saying not only avadim have cheskes gimel shanim, but the godros of Rish Lakish also have cheskes gimel shanim. If you take a look at that Rashbam, there's an aleph in the bracket. You see that aleph in the bracket?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, in the Rashbam?
Yeah.
So that goes to the Hagos Hagra on the right side.
Mhm.
Do you have Hagos Hagra? It might be on your left side. Yeah, you have it over there.
Yeah, I agree.
Hagos Hagra.
Yeah.
Rashbam Diramaskal Mashani, Abel Yesh, Shulchan Aruch Siman Ayin Beis, Uberach Abayis Siman Kuf Lamed Hey, Ve'Rambam Ve'Shulchan Aruch Siman Kuf Lamed Hey Kasvu Avodim Levad. Says the Gra that if you look in the Rambam and you look in Shulchan Aruch, there's no mention of 3 years by Godros, only by Avodim, which goes very nicely with the Mishnah because the Mishnah says Avodim, it doesn't say Behemoths. But it doesn't go very, very nicely with our Gemara because Rabbi just said, "Ein lahem chazaka la'alter, but yesh lahem chazaka la'achar gimel shanim." Who's he talking about? He's talking about Rish Lakish. What was Rish Lakish talking about? Godros. He wasn't talking about Avodim. So says the Rashbam, rightfully so, in the basic understanding of the Gemara's teretz that you have 3 years applies equally, both by Godros and by Avodim. Comes the Rambam and says no. Why does the Rambam not learn that there is Cheskes Gimel Shanim by Avodim? So one reason, by Godros, by animals. So one reason is because it doesn't say in the Mishnah, right? It's a little strange that the Mishnah lists Avodim, but it doesn't list Behemoths. You would think that you would list Behemoths in the Mishnah. Why not list Behemoths if there's really a dinner of Cheskes Gimel Shanim by Behemoths? Instead, the Maggid Mishnah, the fact that the Mishnah doesn't list it would indicate that this din of Gimel Shanim doesn't really apply to Behemoths. But the Sma says an even more basic point. It says, why do we have Cheskes Gimel Shanim? Because a person only holds on to his shtar for 3 years, and after 3 years, he's not going to have a raya anymore. So we have to make a takana. Tell me something. How do you buy a behema? Not with a shtar. Behema daka, behema gasa. It's nicknamed b'meshicha or b'hagba, b'mesira. Not shtar. So you don't have a shtar to begin with. So what do you mean Cheskes Gimel Shanim? Bishlema, when it comes to Avodim, there's a concept of Cheskes Gimel Shanim because like we started off, you buy an Evikadi with a shtar. And after 3 years, you're not going to have your shtar. Same thing as Karka. But what are you talking about Cheskes Gimel Shanim by Godros? You don't buy animals with a shtar. So why did you make a takana over here? So says the Sma, that's why the Rambam left it out. Because it's not part of the takana b'chla. The Rashbam says it is included. So why does the Rashbam say that it's included in the din of Cheskes Gimel Shanim if there's no shtar? So the Rashba explains, it's true there's no shtar, but it has the same problem as things with the shtar. Godros don't have muchsakos. So really, you already have a problem with Godros day one. The day after you bought them, you have no proof because you don't buy Godros with a shtar. And you have no other proof for it because there's no chazaka, it's no muchsakos. So the Chachamim said, you know what? We'll include Godros in the Takana. So at least if you are able to maintain Eidim that will say that this sheep has been by this guy for 3 years and he hasn't left him and nobody was moich about it, now you have a raya that it belongs to you. And now after 3 years of having the sheep working for you, then you will not need a raya anymore. So in other words, it's true that the impetus for the Takana we don't have by sheep. But once we've already done it by Avadim and by Karkaos, so then we'll roll it in, and there's a good reason to roll it in because it has a particular problem also. Now, that problem that animals don't have a raya is not enough of a problem that we're going to go ahead and make a takana. It's not as rampant of a problem as Karkos. It's not as much of a hefsid. There are a lot of other things involved in why we're making the takana when it comes to karka. We didn't have to make a takana when it comes to behemoths. But once we anyways made the takana for karka, so then it makes sense to roll it into. That's where the Rashbam would be coming from. The Ritva and the Rashba point out that there's another area of halacha which also would be nogay over here. When we say there's something called cheskes metaltalim, chazaka kol mashetachas yad adam shaloihu, that only applies to items which the only way you would have gotten it is by buying it or giving it as a matana, or you stole it. And since we don't assume you stole it, we assume you bought it or he gave it to you as a matana. There's an exception to that. there are certain items which are normally, regularly lent. Kalim ha'asuyim lahashil ulahaskir. So what happens if I have a truck and it has U-Haul written on the side? Yeah. So then I can say, what? It's my truck. I have it. What, you gonna accuse me of stealing? Everybody looks at you crazy. It says U-Haul on the side. It's Kalim ha'asuyim lahashil ulahaskir. You can't be masik in Kalim ha'asuyim lahashil ulahaskir. Okay, but what happens if this guy bought a U-Haul truck, right? It was at an auction and he bought the U-Haul truck. So he bought it. So now how's he gonna have a riot? After 3 years, he'll have a riot. Says the Ritva, Kalim ha'asuyim lahashil ulahaskir. Things which we assume were lent or were borrowed or rented, after you've had them for 3 years, you no longer have to deal with everybody asking you, it's not really yours, right? You rented it or you borrowed it. No, at that point, after 3 years having it, now you've arrived that it belongs to you. So not only are we rolling Godros into this Takana of Cheskes Gimel, even though it doesn't have a star, we're also rolling Kalim ha'asuyim lahashil ulahaskir into this Takana. That's a machlokes rishonim. If we also rolled Kalim ha'asuyim lahashil ulahaskir, we don't have a Gemara that says it. All we have a Gemara that includes Godros, but those rishonim say, hey, look, if it's good enough for Godros, let's throw Kalim ha'asuyim lahashil ulahaskir also. And if the Rambam says it doesn't apply by Godros, then it certainly doesn't apply by Kalim ha'asuyim lahashil ulahaskir. So we have basically 3 different shitos over here. We have the Rambam and Pashtus of Shulchan Aruch, which is that this halacha of Gimel Shonim only applies by Avadim. It does not apply anywhere else. Then we have the Ritva and the Rashba that say it applies by, we have the Rashbam that says it applies both by Godros and by Avadim. And then we have the Ritva and the Rashba that have a whole discussion. Once we're already including Godros in the Takana of Gimel Shanim, then maybe we also include Kalim ha'asuyim lahashil ulahaskir. So this is a very Yisraeli thinking Gemara, very big nafkamina. Is there any din of Gimel Shanim when it comes to animals or when it comes to Kalim ha'asuyim lahashil ulahaskir? Okay.
So, according to the Rambam, with the Godros, there's never a chazaka. In other words, you have
Correct. You will never have a chazaka.
You have a dog, and I come and I see you walking it and say, guess what? That's mine.
Right.
Now we're going to go to Beis Din and
so in that case, you don't have to go to Beis Din simply because he has no tfisa on the dog. In other words, the only situation would be if the dog was running around in Rishus Rabim and then you both grabbed onto it. So now we have Shnayim Ois and Mekelev, and they have to go to the Beis Din, and I can't just say, well, it was wandering around yesterday it was in my Rishus, so I have Eidim that it was in my Rishus. That wouldn't be good enough. You wouldn't have a cheskes metaltalin. The idea of cheskes metaltalin is that it's not a riot that belongs to you, but that doesn't allow him to go ahead and grab it from me. In other words, if I'm holding it right now, the fact is that you can't.
It's Geneva.
No, but even without the Geneva issue, the point is you don't look. You're not going to be. You're not going to be on equal ground with me to just grab onto it. So the point is that if he has a valid, in other words, the issue would be if a person has Eidim that testify that that dog was in my Rishus and you're holding the dog, now we go to Beis Din. Because the fact that you're holding the dog in and of itself is not a riot to anything. But if I have Eidim that it belonged to me, right? So now I'm going to Beis Din, and Beis Din will say, well, the fact that you have the dog, there's no chazaka on that. Chazaka doesn't apply when it comes to the behema. And he's got Eidim, so he's the Marakama. The same way by Karka, the Marakama is going to win. So too by Godros, the Marakama is going to win. But without a Marakama being there, then yeah, you wouldn't just be able to walk over to somebody, grab his dog, and run off. No. Okay.
How to prove ownership of a shore Shenodach?
It's a good question. In other words, now all of a sudden he says, that's not my shore. Like, what do you want from me? It's Godros. Anyway, so that actually, I'm glad you reminded me, is actually very interesting. Rabbeinu Gershom over here.
Yeah,
Take a look at Rabbeinu Gershom.
it's in the bottom.
Down the bottom. Amar Rava enam chazaka la'alter obligation chazaka la'achar gimel shanim. You see that? Kidekatani behema gabe avad v'gabe godres behema daka the ein lahem shmira kolkach ein lahem chazaka. Ava behema gasa the yesh lahem shmira yesh lahem chazaka la'alter. The matzi amar atavachartali. So Rabbeinu Gershom is mechalik between a behema gasa and a behema daka. He says, well, I understand this concept that an animal is going to move around freely, that's only like a small animal, like a goat or a sheep. It's going to run off, run into different directions, a dog and a cat. Yes, that's going to be an issue. But when you have a cow, it doesn't just all of a sudden take off. It's lumbering around one place to another. So it's not going to all of a sudden disappear from the owner's eyes, and then he won't be able to find it. So generally, when it comes to a behemoth gasa, says Rabbeinu Gershom, godros is not a plot. And godros is actually mentioned in Maseh when it talks about gidros soy nivna, right? Which literally means fences. That's where we're going to build fences for our cattle or not for our cattle, for our son, so that they don't leave. Actually makes a lot of sense according to Rabbeinu Gershom, because it's only the tzon are the one that are going to be wandering around, but not the cows or anything else. Okay, so that is, but I think he and there's a mitzvah that's mashma like this as well. That's mashma like this as well. That was it the ritva?
That because the payment gas is different.
No, it's not a ritva. This I think Rabbeinu Gershom is the only rishon that says this difference between behemoth gasa and a behemoth dak. It is not brought down la'alacha. In the halacha, it just says behemoth stam. Okay, next Gemara. Amarava. Im haya katan mutal ba'arisa, yesh lo chazaka la'alter. If this Eved Kanani was a baby, right? Mazel tov, the Adon just had a Mazel tov, his Shifcha gave birth to an Eved Kanani, so it becomes, right? Ha'isha v'yiladea tila Adonah. So the Eved Kanani, everything goes to the master. So now, this Eved Katan is in somebody's Rishus. Is there a Chazaka la'alter right away or not? Well, it's in a crib. It's not gonna walk around. So says Rava, so this din of avadim is only talking about an eved that's able to walk around. You have to wait 3 years to get a chazaka. But if it's not walking around, mutal ba'arisa, then we could safely say chazaka kol mashatachas yad adam shalohu. If this eved katan is by somebody, must be he bought it from the other.
As a baby.
Yeah. He's investing. Pshita, says the Gemara, that's pashut. I mean, what are you worried? It can't walk. Says the Gemara, so now that's a very strange way of saying that. So we're talking about a case where it has a mother. I mean, every katan has a mother. So what do you mean it has a mother? So you could say the mother's still alive, but the Rashbam is a different girsa.
And still nursing it until 3 years.
Right, so the Rashbam is a different girsa. The Aile Ime. Not the Isla Ima, the Aile Ima. Which Rashbam says, what that means is, take a look at the Rashbam. The Aile Ime, the Eved, the base also Hamachzik Tadir. She frequents this house. Right? I don't know, there's a play group there, I don't know exactly. She always brings the Eved Katan into this house. Okay. Says the Gemara, Mahu Desema. I might think to say, maybe the reason why the Eved Kanani is there right now, this katan, is because the mother brought the Eved Katan there like she always does, and then she left him there. And now it's there, not because you bought that Eved Kanani, but because the mother brought it there. So there's no right that it belongs to you. Says the Gemara, Kamash Malan, that if the Eved Katan was there by himself, then it can't be that it got there because of the mother, because then it would have left with the mother. The fact that the baby is still there must be that the mother did not bring the baby there and forget it, but rather it must be that this Adon purchased this Eved Kanani, and either the mother was delivering the baby over there, or somebody else brought the baby, and it wasn't the mother that brought it. Okay. So now this idea of Imalo Menashia Bra is an interesting point, because there are a lot of reasons why a mother would not be around a baby. like the mother is out shopping, and so she left the baby with somebody, like this guy who's claiming that it's his baby. So why are we assuming that if the mother always brings the baby there, maybe she is an eved, she's a shifcha, so she got work to do. I guarantee you, the Adon's not going to allow her to be sitting around taking care of the baby the whole day. So there's plenty of time during the day that she is not with that baby.
Mhm.
So she's working right now in the field. And this guy claims, look, there's an Eved here. Where's the mother? Mother's not here. Okay, so it belongs to me. That's not really a good raya. So where's the Cheskes Metaltalin over here? Says Rabbeinu Gershom, you take a look at Rabbeinu Gershom, Isle ima lo menashia bra. Ima lo menashia bra. See that? Umi de isa gabe hai shtei yavim ushlosha v'lo micha yesh lo chazaka. Says Rabbeinu Gershom something a little surprising. If the Eved Katan is by this guy for 2 or 3 days and nobody said anything, then you have a chazaka. Now, what's puzzling is, what does that mean 2 or 3 days and nobody said anything? Is there such a thing as a cheskas gimel yamin? We have cheskas gimel shana, we don't have cheskas gimel yamin. Rabbeinu Gershom is making up a Gemara. The Gemara. What does the Gemara say about an Eved Katan? The Gemara said, here's a chazaka alta. And the Gemara says, pshita. Says the Gemara, no, we're talking about the mother brought it. I would have thought, if the mother brought it there, come on, no, a mother doesn't forget the child. Says Rabbeinu Gershom, after 2 or 3 days. In other words, what's bothering Rabbeinu Gershom is our question, which is, it's very nice that a mother doesn't forget the child, but it's very possible that today she had a trip that she had to be on the whole day, so she wasn't able to be there that day. So you need to have 2 days, or maybe 3 days. And at that point you say, why isn't the mother here? Must be because this guy owns the Eved. Because she wouldn't forget the Eved, and she wouldn't be away from the baby for more than a day or 2. So at this point, now we could say you have a chazaka. But what does it mean, midalo micha? So now we have a new din of cheskes gimel shanim. So I think what the Rabbeinu Gershom means is that the chazaka of muchzakus, that the fact that it's here belongs to me, is a raya that it belongs to me, is only a raya after 2 or 3 days. That's what that means. It's not the pshat, oh, since you weren't moicha, so therefore it's a raya, it doesn't belong to you. It's not a din in macha. It's not the din of cheskes gimel shanim. All Rabbeinu Gershom is saying is the nature of this metaltalin is different than any other metaltalin. Other metaltalin, the fact that it's by you is a raya, it belongs to you, because it didn't get there any other way. When it comes to an Eved Katan is a very specific case. It has a mother, and the mother takes it to this house. If the mother takes it regularly to this house, then it's possible that the Eved Katan is in this house, not because you own it. So at what point do we say it's there because you own it? Says Rabbeinu Gershom, after 2 or 3 days, with nobody taking the baby out, that's what it means. Lo micha. Nobody's coming to claim the baby. Since nobody's coming to claim the baby 1 or 2 or 3 days, at that point, then we say you have cheskas la'alter. Okay.
But doesn't he know who the mother is?
You asked, how do we know?
I mean, she left it with him, right?
Correct.
So he knows who she is.
And therefore what?
He should be able to return it to her, the baby.
No, it's not a Shavas Aveda. He bought it. The point is like this. A man buys an Eved Katan, okay? He doesn't buy it from the mother. He buys it from the other Adon. So you have Reuven and Shimon. Reuven has a bunch of Avadim and Shvachos. And Shimon doesn't have any. Shimon is starting a new business. He wants to start with new Avadim. So he's buying a bunch of Avadim Katanim from different places. So he goes to Reuven and buys an Eved Katan. He goes to Yankel and buys an Eved Katan. So
But not a Tinok.
What?
He doesn't buy a Tinok.
Yeah, he does. Because he wants to train them from when they're young. He doesn't want an Eved that's already been by somebody else. He wants to have it as a baby, and that way he'll be able to teach it what it means to be an Eved from very young. Yeah? So he buys Avadim Katanim right now.
So he bought this
And you
baby.
lose,
So he bought this Eved Katan.
yeah, and the Katan lose their relationship with their mother.
Correct. Because it's an Eved. Eved Kanani does not have a relationship.
It's like a metaltalin.
Correct.
Yeah.
The Gemara says, Zirmas Susim Zirmosum. When it comes to Eved Kanani, like Eliezer, Eved Avram, so he's not considered, it says, it says Shvu lachem po im hachamor. The Gemara says im hadoy melachamor or am hadoy melachamor. So the point is that the same way by chamorim we don't say there's the mother and there's the child. There's no relationship over there. So too, when it comes to Eliezer Eved, when it comes to Avadim Knanim, so then we say there's no relationship over there. So when it comes to the Eved Knani, he bought the Eved Knani, he paid the Adon for the Eved Knani, and now it's his Eved Knani. I don't care who delivers the Eved Knani, whether the mother delivered the Eved Knani or UPS delivered the Eved Knani. Doesn't make a difference. The point
What's
is,
the 2 or 3 days? What's the 3 days?
What?
What's the 3 days? I don't understand what the 3 days is.
So the point is like this. What happens in a situation where the person that bought it, right, Shimon that bought it, happens to have a play group in his house. And this Shifcha has been bringing her Eved Katan to his play group for the past 3 weeks. And now Shimon says, you know what? I'm going to look in the play group and see if there's some nice Avadim Kananim to buy. And he picks on this one. He says, this one I want to buy. So he calls up Reuven. He says, Reuven, the Eved Kanani that comes to my play group over here, I'd like to buy him. He says, okay, it'll cost you $100. Gives him $100. Now he has the Eved Kanani. He owns him now. So the mother brought him there, but when she brought him there, she brought him there because it's a play group. But when she's leaving him there, she's leaving him there because that's his life now. He's going to belong to Shimon now because he bought him. Got it? So at that point, at what point do you have a raya that it belongs to you? So that's what the Gemara is saying. Since the Eved Katan can't get there himself, he only gets there with the mother. So we have two options. Either you bought the Eved Katan, and that's why the mother brought him there, or the reason why the Eved Katan is here is because the mother brought him and forgot him there.
What?
Says the Gemara, the mother's not going to forget him there. So the only other option of why the Eved Katan has been here for 3 days without a mother around is because he bought it. Got it?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Fine. Okay, so next week, Bez Hashem, we'll see the next Gemara, Hanu Easy. It's a very big sugya. It's only a few lines, but it's a very interesting sugya. So we'll see that next week in Mitzvah Hashem.
Okay.
Rabbi, I'm here in Florida.
Oh.
And I haven't had time to be Menachem Avel, about your father. So Hamakam Yenechem Etchem Betoch Shahavei Tzion v'Yerushalayim. You should only know of Simachot and happiness and good remembrances. Your father, and he should have his neshama should have an aliyah, and all your family should have a nechama. Hello. I lost you. Hello? Hello? I don't have, I guess I have your telephone number now. I didn't have it before, so. All right, yeah, everything should be for good. Okay. All right, you have a good evening. We'll see you next week. Okay, okay, bye. Oh, I do have it now too. Oh, why do you like that?